Hello, everyone. We have 30 idioms that we have selected for you from our YouTube collection. These English idioms are perfect and often fun ways to describe people in our everyday conversation. We have the meaning and origin, so stay tuned as we get going. The phrase, "when push comes to shove," is one of those expressions that's tossed around in conversations. But what does it really mean? When we say, "when push comes to shove," we're talking about a situation escalating to a point where action becomes necessary. It's not just about pushing, it's about what happens when that pushing reaches a shove, when the pressure mounts and you have to act decisively. So, where did this phrase come from? Historians trace it back to the 1800s in America. It was first written down in the mid-19th century, but it was probably used in speech even earlier. The phrase captures the idea of escalation. From a gentle push, a nudge to act, to a shove, a forceful and final move to resolve a situation. In today's language, we often use "when push comes to shove" in workplaces or in discussions about handling tough situations. It's about that crunch time moment when decisions can no longer be delayed. For example, you might hear it in a meeting when your team discusses what to do if a project's deadline is threatened. When push comes to shove, we might need to pull an all-nighter to get this done. But it's not just about work. This phrase touches on the human spirit of resilience and adaptability. When faced with challenges, when the going gets tough, what do? We find a way to push through, to act when it truly counts. So, next time you hear "when push comes to shove," think about it not just as a call to action, but as a reminder of our capacity to rise to the occasion, to transform pressure into progress. It encapsulates a pivotal moment, a turning point when decisions are made and actions are taken. Remember, it's about more than just pushing back. It's about what happens when that push turns into a shove. And that, my curious friends, is the real meaning behind "when push comes to shove." If you're one to stay up late, working or studying until the wee hours, then you are literally embodying this centuries-old expression of burning the midnight oil. And it has some fascinating origins in what it really means. Historically, before the existence of electric lighting, people used oil lamps to light up the darkness. These lamps, often fueled by whale oil or vegetable oils, were essential for anyone needing to work or read after sunset. The phrase "burning the midnight oil" can be traced back to the 17th century, and it vividly captures the image of a person working late into the night, their only company being the flickering light of an oil lamp. But why midnight? Well, midnight is often thought of as a mystical hour, a time when the boundary between the day gone by and the day to come blurs. It's a time of quiet and solitude, which can be perfect for uninterrupted work or reflection. The phrase embodies not just the act of working late, but also the dedication and the solitude that comes with it. Fast forward to today, and the phrase has taken on a slightly broader meaning. It's no longer just about oil lamps and a literal midnight. Now, burning the midnight oil refers to the effort and the late hours someone might put into any task. Whether it's preparing for an exam, finishing a project at work, or even binge-watching a favorite series. Interestingly, this expression also reflects a bit about society's view on hard work and dedication. It's often used positively to describe someone's extra effort and commitment to a task. However, it also brings to light the modern challenges of work-life balance, where burning the midnight oil might not always be the healthiest choice. So next time you find yourself up late working hard on something important, remember, you're part of a centuries-old tradition. Whether it's with the soft glow of a lamp or the backlight of a computer screen, you're connected through time by the pursuit of goals and the burning of that metaphorical midnight oil. And there you have it. The surprisingly deep and historical journey of a phrase that's become a staple in our late-night vocabularies. Thanks for sticking around, and remember, sometimes it's okay to turn off the oil and get some rest. So bite the dust is a phrase we often hear when someone or something falls down or fails spectacularly. But where did this expression originate? Interestingly, it has ancient roots. The phrase is generally thought to have been popularized by Homer in his epic The Iliad, where it was used literally to describe warriors who fell in battle and ended up with their faces in the dust. But the journey of this phrase from ancient texts to modern usage is what's truly fascinating. Fast forward to the 18th century, the phrase appears in a slightly altered form. Here, it shows up in Tobias Smollett's translation of The Adventures of Gil Blas. In these writings, it was used as lick the dust. Over time, lick transformed back to bite, which vividly conjures the image of someone hitting the ground hard. Let's look at a modern example to see how it's used today. Imagine a high-stakes soccer match where the underdog team unexpectedly defeats the reigning champions. You could say in a stunning turn of events, the champions bit the dust, and the underdogs claimed victory. Here, Bite the dust vividly describes the defeat and downfall of the champions. So there you have it. From ancient epics to everyday conversations, Bite the Dust has maintained its dramatic flair, illustrating both literal and metaphorical falls. Next time you hear it, you'll know exactly where it came from and just how deep its roots go. Let me take you back in time to the era of William Shakespeare. This phrase, which we often use to pinpoint a problem or a catch in a situation, originates from one of Shakespeare's most famous works, Hamlet. In the play, the troubled Prince Hamlet delivers a soliloquy that dives deep into themes of existence, life, and death. Amidst his profound musings, he says, "To sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub." Here, rub refers to an obstacle or difficulty, specifically in the context of Hamlet, the fears that come with dreams that might occur in sleep after death. Now, fast forward to today, and there's the rub has evolved. It's now used more broadly to highlight any sort of obstacle, problem, or issue within a scenario, not just the existential dread of a Shakespearean character. Interestingly, the term rub also has roots in the game of bowls, similar to modern-day lawn bowling. In this game, rub referred to any irregularity in the ground that might divert the ball from its intended path. This, metaphorically speaking, could be any bump in the road of life that alters one's course. Quite fitting, don't you think? So next time you're discussing a problem and say there's the rub, remember you're dipping into a bit of literary and historical flavor, courtesy of the bard himself in an old English sport. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this dive into language both enlightening and entertaining. The elephant in the room. This idiom is a metaphor for an obvious problem or issue that everyone is aware of, but no one wants to talk about. It's that huge, unavoidable topic that everyone sidesteps because addressing it might be uncomfortable or awkward. One of the earliest uses was in a story written in 1882 by Mark Twain, The Stolen White Elephant. In the story, the detectives are searching for a stolen elephant that is hidden in plain sight. The narrative underscores the ridiculousness of ignoring something so blatantly obvious. The phrase gained considerable popularity in the 20th century. The essence of the idiom is pretty clear. Elephants are huge and impossible to miss. Imagine you're at a family reunion. Everyone's having a great time catching up, but there's one big issue. Two siblings had a massive falling out last year and haven't spoken since. Everyone at the reunion knows about the rift, but no one wants to bring it up. Instead, they talk about the food, the kids, and the weather, avoiding the huge elephant in the room, the sibling feud. It just is not possible to tiptoe around an elephant. It's like trying to ignore a marching band parading through your living room while you're watching TV. It's like trying to hide a watermelon under your shirt. Everyone knows it's there, so don't pretend it's not. Addressing the elephant in the room can be tough, but it's crucial for healthy relationships, whether personal or professional. Facing these big issues head-on can lead to growth, resolution, and ultimately, a stronger, more honest connection with others. So next time you find yourself in a room with an elephant, muster up the courage to address it. Clearing the air can make a world of difference. And there you have it. That's the lowdown on the idiom, the elephant in the room. Hit the nail on the head. Ever wondered where it came from or what exactly it means? So hit the nail on the head is a saying that means to describe exactly what is causing a situation or problem. It's like when you're playing darts and you hit the bullseye. Spot on! The origin of this phrase goes back several centuries. It's believed to have first appeared in writing around the mid-15th century. The earliest usage was found in The Book of Margery Kempe, a medieval text from England. In this context, it was used literally, but started gaining a more figurative sense over the years. By the 16th century, this expression was common in literature, indicating that it was widely understood and used. William Shakespeare, who had a knack for crafting catchy phrases, used a variation of it. In his play, Henry VI, where he wrote, "For he that doth not hit the nail on the head." This shows that even back then, getting things exactly right was as satisfying as it is today. In terms of its literal meaning, think about it. When you hit a nail perfectly on the head with a hammer, you drive it in efficiently and effectively. There's no bending of the nail or missing the target. It's direct and precise. That's why this metaphor works so well for expressing accuracy in speech or action. Today, we use hit the nail on the head in everyday conversations, especially when someone makes an observation or a point that is incredibly accurate. It's a way to acknowledge that someone has pinpointed the essence of the matter without any fluff or detour. So the next time you nail an explanation or identify the core of a problem perfectly, remember, you're partaking in a tradition that's been around for centuries. You're not just speaking, you're literally hitting the nail on the head. I am sure you have heard the phrase, "A rolling stone gathers no moss." Well, today we're taking a look at this intriguing idiom and why it's stuck around in our conversations for so long. So what's the deal with rolling stones and moss, you ask? Well, first off, let's break down the imagery. Picture a stone rolling down a hillside, constantly in motion. Moss, that green, cushy stuff you find on rocks and trees, needs stability and moisture to grow. So if a stone keeps rolling, moss doesn't get a chance to cling on. Simple, right? But there's more to it than just the literal interpretation. Historically, this phrase has been used to describe a person who doesn't settle in one place or job for long, and therefore lacks responsibilities, experience, or wealth. It suggests that staying mobile prevents one from establishing roots or accumulating burdens. But is that really a bad thing? In more modern interpretations, the idea of a rolling stone has taken on a somewhat positive twist. Think about it. In today's fast-paced world, being flexible and adaptable, like that rolling stone, might actually be beneficial. It suggests freedom, the ability to think on your feet, and the courage to embrace change. Interestingly, this phrase was popularized by none other than Bob Dylan with his classic hit, Like a Rolling Stone. Dylan's take gives a bit of a nod to the freedom and the existential challenge of being unanchored, which resonated with many during the turbulent 60s. And let's not forget the famous rock band, the Rolling Stones, who quite literally took the name to embody an image of perpetual youth and rebellion. So, next time you hear someone say, "A rolling stone gathers no moss," think about it. Are they warning against a nomadic lifestyle, or perhaps celebrating the liberating aspect of constant movement? It seems the interpretation can roll any which way, depending on your perspective. And there you have it! The layered meanings behind a seemingly simple proverb. Fascinating, isn't it? How a few words can encapsulate such deep wisdom and varied interpretations. So, are you a rolling stone, or do you prefer gathering a bit of moss? The expression "cut to the chase" has a very interesting origin and is a phrase we often use to tell someone to get to the point, skipping all the unnecessary details. But why chase? What is being cut? The story begins in the early days of Hollywood. Back then, silent films were all the rage and they followed a pretty predictable formula. Most of these films had lengthy, sometimes cumbersome build-ups. However, they almost always ended in a thrilling chase scene, be it on horseback, a car, or even on foot. These chase scenes were the action-packed climaxes of the movies, and frankly, what audiences were eagerly waiting for. As filmmakers noticed the audience's preferences, they started using a script direction called cut to the chase. This would instruct the film editor to skip straight to the action scene, bypassing the slower, more tedious parts of the screenplay. It was all about keeping the audience engaged and on the edge of their seats. Fast forward to our modern times, and the phrase has leapt from the silver screens into our everyday language. It's used in meetings, conversations, and yes, even YouTube videos to push past the fluff and get right to the heart of the matter. So next time you urge someone to cut to the chase, remember, you're not just using a figure of speech. You're echoing the very essence of early filmmaking, a nod to those dramatic pursuits that captivated audiences nearly a century ago. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't? Let's dive into what this intriguing phrase really means and where it came from. Originally, this proverb suggests that it's wiser to deal with someone familiar, though undesirable, than to risk the unknown, which could be even worse. It's about sticking with a known quantity rather than taking a gamble or risk on something new that might prove to be a bigger threat. The earliest recorded use of this expression can be traced back to the 16th century. It was mentioned in a collection of proverbs by R. Taverner in 1539. However, the sentiment of the phrase is likely much older, rooted deeply in human psychology and our natural aversion to uncertainty. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're working in a job that's not perfect. Your boss is tough, and the hours are long. You might consider jumping ship to a new company, but there's a risk. What if the new boss is even tougher, or the job demands even more of your time? In this scenario, better the devil you know might run through your mind as you weigh the risks of sticking it out in your current role versus venturing into the unknown. This proverb serves as a cautionary tale about the risks of the unknown. It encourages careful consideration before making a change, reminding us that sometimes the familiar, even with its flaws, can be safer than the untested. So next time you're pondering a big decision, remember, it might just be better to stick with the devil you know. Where does hit the ground running come from, and what does it mean? Of course, you are here to find out, so let us take a look at the surprising origins of this popular expression. To hit the ground running means to begin something with enthusiasm and vigor, immediately effective without any need to build up speed. It's like launching off the starting blocks in a sprint, already moving at full tilt. The phrase is relatively modern with its roots in American culture. One of the earliest recorded uses was during World War II. It was used metaphorically to describe paratroopers who, quite literally, had to start fighting as soon as they hit the ground. But the phrase didn't stay in the military for long. By the 1950s and 60s, it had leapt into the world of American business and politics. Politicians would talk about hitting the ground running in their campaigns, implying they were ready to tackle the issues from day one. Interestingly, the phrase also found a home in the arts. In music, for instance, the expression conveyed starting a performance with high energy, capturing the audience from the first note. This adaptation shows how versatile language can be, morphing to fit different contexts and needs. Today, hit the ground running is a staple in workplace jargon, often used to describe the ideal start to a new job or project. It suggests not only starting quickly, but also with a clear plan and the momentum to sustain that early burst of activity. So the next time you hear someone say they want to hit the ground running, you'll know exactly what they mean and where it all started. From parachutes to politics, it's a phrase that's definitely made its mark. Let us spill the beans on the phrase, spill the beans. So first up, what does spill the beans actually mean? In modern usage, it's all about revealing secrets or disclosing information that was supposed to be kept under wraps. But why beans of all things? The phrase has a couple of theories tied to its origin. The first one takes us all the way back to ancient Greece. Yes, you heard that right, ancient Greece. During elections, votes were cast using beans. A white bean indicated a yes vote. Then for a no vote, they would use a dark bean. These beans were placed in a jar and kept hidden. If someone accidentally or intentionally knocked over the jar, the beans would spill and the votes would be prematurely revealed. Thus, spilling the beans became synonymous with letting out a secret. Now let's fast forward to a more recent, albeit less exciting theory, which suggests that the phrase originated in the early 20th century in American English. In horse racing, trainers and owners sometimes had inside information about how a race was fixed or which horse was likely to win. Spilling the beans in this context referred to revealing that critical, secretive information, which could also involve a lot of betting money. So whether it's an accidental reveal in ancient Greece or the intentional divulging of secret race tips, spill the beans has always involved disclosing something meant to be kept secret. Isn't language fascinating? From literal beans to metaphoric secrets, this phrase has definitely carried a lot of weight through history. Next time you hear someone say, spill the beans, you'll know the rich history that comes with it. Who let the cat out of the bag? So you might think it involves an actual cat and an actual bag, right? Well, not exactly. This phrase actually hails from old market days. Picture this. Back in medieval times, farmers often took pigs to the market in a sack. Now, a sneaky trick by some was to replace the pig with a far less valuable cat. Imagine a buyer thinking they're getting a pig, only to open the bag at home and, surprise, a wild cat leaps out. The truth is revealed, quite literally, letting the cat out of the bag. Such a revelation must have been both a shock and a disappointment. But wait, there's another layer to this. Some historians argue that the phrase might also be linked to the cat o' nine tails, a whip used as punishment on naval ships. The whip was stored in a sack, and bringing it out meant someone was going to get a lashing, thus revealing unpleasant consequences. Ouch! Now, while these stories paint a picture, the exact origin isn't 100% confirmed. Like many idioms, it probably evolved over time, absorbing elements from different stories and social practices. So next time you hear someone say who let the cat out of the bag, you'll know that this phrase might be carrying centuries of sneaky deals and naval discipline. Quite the baggage for one little idiom, right? Is love really blind? When we say love is blind, we're not talking about losing your vision when you fall head over heels in love with someone. No, this phrase dives much deeper. Imagine you're wandering through a park and you see a couple laughing together, utterly oblivious to the world around them. That's a snapshot of love is blind. It means that when you truly love someone, you overlook their flaws. Their imperfections don't just disappear, but they're overshadowed by the overwhelming affection you feel for them. But why does this happen? Science tells us it's all about the chemicals in our brains. When we fall in love, our bodies are flooded with dopamine, as well as oxytocin, creating a euphoric haze that clouds our judgment. Yes, this means that in the throes of passion, we might ignore our partner's annoying habits or the red flags that friends might see. Yet there's a beauty in this blindness, isn't there? It allows us to bond deeply with another person, creating strong partnerships despite imperfections. Now, where did this phrase originate? Way back in ancient Rome, the poet Plautus mentioned a similar idea in a play he wrote. During the Middle Ages, it appears in Geoffrey Chaucer's The Merchant's Tale around 1405. Once we fast forward to the 16th century, and you'll see the phrase pop up in several of Shakespeare's works, such as The Merchant of Venice. It reflects the idea that emotions can override our rational judgment, a concept as relevant today as it was hundreds of years ago. Yet there's a beauty in this blindness, isn't there? It allows us to bond deeply with another person, creating strong partnerships despite imperfections. But it's not without risks. Sometimes love's blindness can lead us into unhealthy relationships if the connection is based solely on emotion, ignoring practical or even harmful aspects of the relationship. So, is love blind? In many ways, yes. It sees no faults, hears no warnings, and often makes no sense. But it's also one of the most profound human experiences. To love unconditionally, to see the best in someone, even when everyone else sees differently, is a kind of magic, don't you think? But remember, the most enduring love is the one where the initial blindness evolves into a deeper, clearer sight. A love where partners see each other completely and choose to stay, flaws and all. Now that's a love worth striving for. Thanks for joining me on this heartfelt exploration. Whether you're in love right now or waiting for it to strike, remember, love might be blind, but it doesn't have to be oblivious. Keep your eyes open, your heart ready, and who knows? Maybe you'll find a love that not only blinds, but also opens your eyes in ways you never imagined. The phrase, wearing your heart on your sleeve, does seem a bit silly. It's a pretty vivid image. A heart, right there, out on your sleeve for everyone to see is quite strange. So where does this saying come from? Well, it dates back to the Middle Ages. Imagine knights jousting at a tournament, each fighting under the banner of a lady they admire. Some knights would wear ribbons or scarves given to them by these ladies, literally on their arms. This was a public declaration of whom they held dear, pretty much putting their feelings out there for everyone to see, much like wearing their hearts on their sleeves. Now fast forward to today. When we say someone wears their heart on their sleeve, we aren't talking about medieval knights anymore, but we are talking about being open with our emotions. It's about showing our feelings easily and not hiding them away. In a world where we're often told to keep our cards close to our chest, being someone who's transparent about their feelings can actually be pretty brave. But why is it seen as brave? Because showing your emotions, being genuine and vulnerable, opens you up to the world. It can lead to stronger, more honest relationships. Sure, there's always the risk of getting hurt, but there's also the potential for great understanding and connection. So next time you hear someone say they wear their heart on their sleeve, know that there's someone who isn't afraid to show what they feel. And maybe, just maybe, that's something we could all learn to do a little more often. Because in a world full of guarded hearts, a little openness could be just what we need. So what is salad days and where does it come from? This phrase might conjure images of you munching on a green Caesar salad on a sunny afternoon. But it's actually a lot more than that. It refers to a time when someone is at the peak of their youthful inexperience, a period of youthful exuberance and naivety. Now, where did this tasty phrase originate? We can thank none other than William Shakespeare for this one. The term salad days was first coined in his play, Antony and Cleopatra. Cleopatra is reminiscing about her youthful adventures with Julius Caesar. She goes on and describes her past self as being, in her salad days when I was green in judgment, cold in blood. Here, green hints at inexperience, much like unripe fruit or vegetables. Interestingly, the idiom has aged well and evolved. In modern times, it's not just about youthful naivety, but also about vigor and the idealistic period of life when everything seems possible and the world looks fresh and exciting, just like a crisp salad. So next time someone mentions their salad days, you'll know they're not just talking about their favorite lunchtime meal, but about a time when they were full of dreams, energy, and maybe just a bit green. Thanks for watching, and remember, every day can be a salad day if you keep that spirit alive. Kick the bucket. The phrase is commonly used to refer, rather euphemistically, to someone's death. But the origins of this phrase are a bit murky and, to be honest, quite interesting. One popular theory takes us back to medieval England. It's said that when someone was to be hanged, either by suicide or execution, they would stand on a large bucket. Once the bucket was kicked away, well, the phrase pretty much explains itself. This method, though gruesome, links directly back to the term we use today. Another theory suggests a more benign origin related to farming. Picture a wooden beam in a barn, which in Old English was called a buke. Sometimes animals slaughtered in the barn were hung from this beam. Thus, kicking the bucket might have originally referred to the pig's spasms before succumbing, literally kicking the buke. But which of these theories is true? Well, it might be a blend of both, or perhaps neither. Historical linguistics often finds that expressions like these can evolve and blend over centuries, making a single origin hard to pinpoint. What's absolutely fascinating is how such a grim expression has evolved into common usage, losing much of its dark flavor in the process. Today, it's a lighthearted, if not entirely jovial, way of discussing something as serious as death. So the next time you hear someone say they're kicking the bucket, you'll know a bit more about where this odd saying might have come from. Whether it's medieval hangings or farmyard antics, language has a curious way of preserving history in the most unexpected phrases. Have you ever heard someone say they're going to throw in the towel? It's a common phrase, isn't it? But where does it come from and what does it mean? Let's dive into the surprising history behind this popular saying and uncover its origins together. The phrase throw in the towel is used when someone wants to give up, admitting defeat. It's especially popular in sports and competitive situations. But did you know it has its roots in the boxing ring? That's right. The history of this expression dates back to the early 1900s, in the gritty early world of boxing. During a match, when a fighter could no longer continue, his coach or trainer would literally throw a towel into the ring to stop the fight. This was a signal to the referee that the boxer was conceding defeat, unable to go on. This practice wasn't just about giving up, though. It was a measure of safety, protecting the boxer from unnecessary harm. This is what makes the saying so poignant. It's not just about quitting, but about knowing when to prioritize safety and well-being over victory. Over time, this phrase has moved out of the boxing ring. It's now used broadly across various scenarios, from sports to business and even personal life, representing a broader concept of acknowledging limitations and choosing to step back rather than suffer more severe consequences. So, the next time you hear someone say they're going to throw in the towel, you'll know exactly where it comes from. It's a reminder that sometimes admitting defeat isn't a sign of weakness, but a strategic choice to prevent further loss. A concept as relevant in everyday life as it is in sports. Understanding these origins not only enriches our vocabulary, but also deepens our appreciation for the phrases we use every day. So keep learning, keep exploring, and who knows what other interesting stories you'll uncover behind the words we take for granted. Have you ever had something happen to you that seemed terrible at the time, but later turned out to be something really positive? Well, you're not alone. This is what we call a blessing in disguise. The phrase itself has a fascinating origin, believed to have come from the mid-18th century. It's often attributed to the English writer and priest James Hervey, who used it in his writings, suggesting that what might not look great initially could actually turn out to be beneficial. So, what makes this phrase so universally relatable and enduring? Let's take a look. Imagine this. You miss your bus for work and are frustrated about being late. However, it soon starts to snow heavily, and this causes many cars and buses to get stuck in the snow. Suddenly, missing the bus doesn't seem so bad, right? That's a blessing in disguise, a misfortune that eventually reveals itself as a benefit. This concept isn't just a modern psychological coping mechanism. It's deeply rooted in many cultural narratives and religions around the world. It teaches us resilience and helps us find silver linings, even in the darkest clouds. But what's truly fascinating is how this concept plays out in real life beyond personal examples. In business, for instance, many entrepreneurs initially face setbacks, only to realize later that these challenges push them towards greater innovation and success. It was a blessing in disguise. In science, accidental discoveries, like penicillin, were initially just that. Accidents, perceived misfortunes that ended up benefiting millions. So next time something doesn't go your way, remember the story of the blessing in disguise. It might just be that what you're experiencing is not the door closing, but a hidden passage opening to something even better. Whether it's in our personal lives or professional environments, conflicts are inevitable. But what does it really mean to resolve these conflicts and truly bury the hatchet? Let's start by understanding what burying the hatchet really means. This phrase actually dates back to a practice by Native American tribes, where they would literally bury their weapons as a sign of peace. Today, it symbolizes the end of conflict and the start of a peaceful agreement. So how do we apply this in our daily lives? First, it's crucial to actively listen. When I say listen, I mean really listen, without planning your next argument in your head while the other person is still talking. It's about understanding the other person's perspective, not just hearing their words. Next, empathy plays a key role. Try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. How are they feeling? Why might they feel that way? Often, just showing that you understand and care about their feelings can help a situation significantly. And here's a tough one: admitting when you're wrong. We all make mistakes, and sometimes a simple, sincere apology can go a long way in mending fences. It's not about winning or losing, it's about moving forward together. Lastly, agree to disagree if necessary. Not all conflicts will end with both sides seeing eye to eye, and that's okay. Wild goose chase. It conjures up images of running after these large flapping birds, doesn't it? But the origin is even more fascinating and a bit competitive. Picture this, it's the 16th century. Horse racing is all the rage in England, but not the horse racing you're picturing. This was horse racing, all right, but with a twist. The race was called a wild goose chase because it involved following a lead horse in a formation similar to wild geese flying in a V shape. The second rider had to follow the path of the leader, much like catching a goose, which, as you can imagine, could be quite unpredictable. The term was first recorded in 1593 and was popularized by none other than William Shakespeare in his play Romeo and Juliet. Now, fast forward to today, and the phrase has evolved. It no longer involves horses or actual geese. Instead, it's used metaphorically to describe an effort that is pointless or has very little chance of success. Why the change? Well, over the centuries, the chaotic and unpredictable nature of the original wild goose chase reminded people more of a futile effort than a structured race. Fascinating, right? From a structured yet chaotic horse race to a modern metaphor for fruitless endeavors. The phrase wild goose chase has transformed, adapting to the times while still keeping a hint of its original wild spirit. So next time you hear someone talking about being on a wild goose chase, you'll know exactly what they mean and where it all started. And who knows? Maybe it'll inspire you to look more into other quirky phrases we use every day. The idiom, take a rain check, means to politely decline an invitation or offer with the intention of accepting it at a later time. It's a polite way of saying, not today, but I'm interested in doing it in the future. The origin of take a rain check goes back to 19th century America, specifically in the world of baseball. If a baseball game was called off due to rain, attendees were given a rain check, which was essentially a ticket or voucher that allowed them to attend the rescheduled game without purchasing another ticket. Over time, this term extended beyond baseball and is now used in everyday language. Imagine your friend invites you to a spontaneous skydiving adventure this weekend. You're not quite feeling up to jumping out of a plane just yet, so you say, I think I'll take a rain check on that one. Let me master the art of getting out of bed on a Monday first. This way, you've humorously declined the immediate offer while leaving the door open for future participation. It's a way to stay engaged without committing right away. Remember, life is all about timing. Sometimes you need to wait for the right moment to dive into new experiences. So keep those rain checks handy and seize the opportunity when the time feels right. Did you ever wonder why we say someone is under the weather when they're not feeling too well? Well, let's dive in and find out. So picture this, it's the 1800s, and you're aboard a giant sailing ship. The sea is choppy, the skies are gray, and oh boy, does your stomach know it. Sailors often battling seasickness would go below deck to avoid worsening their condition from the bad weather. Being literally lower or under the heavy decks, they would hope to feel better. Fast forward to today, and under the weather has sailed right into our everyday language, now meaning that you are feeling ill or out of sorts. Funny how phrases morph over time? Now, next time you hear someone say they're under the weather, you can picture them dodging those waves on an old sailing ship. Thanks for joining me on this little linguistic voyage, and don't forget to keep thinking and being curious. A stitch in time saves 9 is a classic English proverb that's been around for hundreds of years. It's a metaphorical needle threading its way through the fabric of our language, sewing wisdom into our everyday conversations. The proverb is a nudge, a gentle reminder to take care of problems as soon as they arise, rather than letting them fester and grow. Imagine a small tear in a piece of clothing. If you notice the tear and stitch it up immediately, it's a quick and easy fix. But if you ignore it, the tear will continue to grow, eventually requiring more time, effort, and indeed, more stitches. Hence the saying, a stitch in time saves 9, suggests that prompt action can prevent a small problem from becoming a much larger one. So the next time you hear, a stitch in time saves 9, remember, it's more than just a saying. It's a centuries-old piece of wisdom, encouraging us to act promptly, to nip problems in the bud, and save ourselves from greater troubles in the future. The term break the ice is one we often use without a second thought. It refers to reducing the tension in a social situation, making it easier for people to relax and open up. Let's dive into the chilly origins of this popular idiom. The origins of break the ice can be traced back to the 16th century. It was first used literally, referring to the breaking of ice in rivers during winter. This was crucial to ensure that trade ships could pass through frozen waters. However, by the 17th century, the phrase began appearing in a metaphorical sense. In 1607, Sir Thomas North used it in his translation of Plutarch's Lives, suggesting that breaking the ice was akin to overcoming social barriers. The idea was that just as ships needed a pathway through the ice to proceed, conversation needed an opening to flow smoothly. Over time, break the ice became a popular metaphor in literature and everyday language, symbolizing the act of overcoming initial social awkwardness. Its use has been adapted in various cultures and languages, reflecting a universal challenge in human interactions, the first step in forming a connection. So next time you're looking to break the ice, remember, you're participating in a centuries-old tradition of trying to make passage easier, not just for ships, but in social situations as well. It is interesting that jealousy is often called the green-eyed monster. Well, let's take a look at this colorful expression and unearth its intriguing origins and meanings. The phrase green-eyed monster refers to the intense emotion of jealousy that can sometimes take over our reasoning and actions, almost like a monster. But why green? Historically, the color green has been associated with illness and a lack of health. You might think of someone looking pale and sickly when they're green with envy, but the specific phrase green-eyed monster was popularized by none other than William Shakespeare. In his play Othello, written way back in 1603, Shakespeare uses this line where the character Iago warns Othello, "Oh, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on." This vivid imagery caught people's imaginations and cemented the term in the English language. Shakespeare might have chosen the color green because it was believed that jealousy could produce a greenish serum in the bloodstream. Also, in earlier texts and folklore, green was often associated with witchcraft, monsters, and other supernatural elements. This gives a deeper, almost eerie layer to the term. So next time you hear someone mention the green-eyed monster, you'll know they're not necessarily talking about a creature from a scary movie. Instead, they are referring to that old universal feeling of jealousy that Shakespeare so brilliantly encapsulated in just 3 words. Remember, it's always best to keep this particular monster on a tight leash. The phrase piece of cake is often used to describe something that is very easy to do. But how did this saying get baked into our everyday language? The exact origin isn't clear, but it seems to have started back in the 1870s. One popular theory suggests it comes from the tradition of giving cakes as prizes for winning competitions. Imagine racing or participating in a contest where the prize was a literal piece of cake. Winning the cake was often easy for the skilled participants, hence the task was as easy as winning a piece of cake. Moving forward to the 1900s, the phrase gained more popularity. It was used in the 1930s and 40s in literature and newspapers, spreading like warm butter on toast, embedding itself in the English language. During World War II, the phrase was part of Royal Air Force slang. The pilots would use it to describe smooth and successful missions. A piece of cake meant flying through the enemy zone and returning without a hitch. Today, we use piece of cake in all sorts of contexts, not just for winning sweets or flying planes. Passed that math test without studying? Piece of cake. Set up a tent for the first time and it didn't collapse? Piece of cake. In a world full of complex challenges, it's kind of comforting to have a phrase that reminds us some things are simple as eating a delicious piece of cake. So the next time you nail something without breaking a sweat, you know what to say. That was a piece of cake. Thanks for watching, and remember, life might just offer you a slice of cake when you least expect it. Enjoy the sweetness. Barking up the wrong tree. Let us take a look at what this really means and how you can ensure you're not making this mistake. Originating from the days of hunting, this phrase was used to describe a situation where a dog mistakenly believes the prey it's chasing is up a particular tree. But in reality, it's not. Essentially, it's an effort wasted on a misguided pursuit. Now, you might be wondering, how does this apply to me? In our daily lives, whether it's in our careers, personal goals, or even relationships, we often find ourselves working tirelessly towards something we believe is right. But are we always on the right path? Consider this. You've been working late hours, taking on extra projects at work in hopes of a promotion. Sounds diligent, right? But what if I told you that your boss actually values creativity and leadership more than overtime? Suddenly, it feels like you're barking up the wrong tree. The key here is alignment. It's about aligning your efforts with your true goals and the metrics that matter. Start by defining clear goals and understanding what success really looks like in that context. Ask for feedback, do your research, and most importantly, be open to adjusting your course. It's not about working harder, but smarter. For instance, if you're an entrepreneur, instead of just increasing product features, find out what your customers truly need. Maybe it's better customer service or a simpler user interface. By aligning your efforts with your customers' real needs, you're definitely barking up the right tree. To wrap it up, the idiom barking up the wrong tree is a powerful metaphor, reminding us to check if our efforts are directed towards worthwhile endeavors. It's about being mindful and strategic with our energy and resources. So next time you're deep into a project or goal, take a step back and ask yourself, am I barking up the right tree? Remember, it's never too late to adjust your path and focus on what truly matters. The phrase bite the bullet is a very strange idiom. To bite the bullet means to endure a painful or otherwise unpleasant situation that is seen as unavoidable. But why a bullet? What does biting a bullet have to do with facing tough situations? Let's travel back in time to the mid-1800s, during the heat of battle. Imagine you're a soldier and medical facilities are, well, less than ideal. Anesthesia certainly was hardly available. So if you needed surgery, doctors often gave you a bullet to bite on. Yeah, a literal bullet. This was supposed to help you cope with the pain by giving you something to clench down on, distracting you from the surgery. Over time, the phrase evolved from a literal practice to a metaphorical one, symbolizing endurance and stoicism in the face of adversity. Interestingly, there are alternative theories too. Some historians argue that the phrase might have originated from the expression, bite the cartridge, which refers to tearing open the paper cartridges used in muskets with the teeth. From a painful medical practice to a figure of speech promoting courage and resilience, bite the bullet has certainly come a long way. Next time you use this expression, remember its gritty origins. If you found this snippet of history fascinating, don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing tales from the past. The phrase, a red herring, originates from a humorous fishing tactic. Legend has it that mischievous fishermen used to distract their competitors by trailing a smelly red-colored fish called a herring across the trail of a prized catch. This would then lead their rivals away from the real target. In a more serious sense, a red herring refers to a misleading clue or distraction that veers someone off course from the main issue or argument. It's like chasing after that smelly fish instead of focusing on the big catch. Here's an example. Imagine a student preparing for a tough exam. Instead of getting bogged down by certain details, the student keeps their eye on the main topic for a solid understanding of the subject. By ignoring the red herrings like overanalyzing trivial points, they ace the exam with flying colors. The red herring phrase reminds us to stay focused on what truly matters and not get tangled up in distractions or irrelevant details. By identifying and ignoring those tempting but misleading clues, we can stay on track and achieve our goals more effectively. So, break a leg is commonly used in the theater world as a way to wish performers good luck, but without actually saying those words. Superstitions in theater are as old as the curtains themselves, and saying good luck is considered bad luck. Weird, right? But where did break a leg originate? There are a few theories. One popular tale takes us back to the Elizabethan era. Back then, break a leg referred to bowing, where actors bend their legs after a performance. If the audience liked the show, actors would break their legs multiple times during curtain calls. Another interesting theory links the phrase to the world of aviation. During World War I, German fighter pilots had a saying, Hals- und Beinbruch, which translates to neck and leg break. It was used to wish good luck, and some speculate that English performers might have adopted a similar expression. And here's a fun twist. Some believe it's all about literal breakage. In the early days of vaudeville, understudies would wish for something to happen to the main performers, so they could take the stage themselves. Saying break a leg was almost a cheeky way of hoping for their big break, no pun intended. But no matter which theory you lean towards, it's clear that break a leg is deeply rooted in a rich history of performance, superstition, and perhaps a bit of dark humor. So next time you hear someone say break a leg, you'll know there's more to this phrase than meets the eye. Whether it's a bow, a nod to old pilot sayings, or a slightly mischievous wish, it's all part of the fascinating tapestry of language and culture. Thanks for tuning in, and hey, break a leg out there. Remember, curiosity leads to amazing discoveries. Keep questioning and exploring the world around you. Until next time!